On my screen, I have written multiple values. So I have written values like 10, 96.5, small a, hash, comma, then hello there, 2.0012, 1.99978. Okay. Now why I have written all these values? So these values are actually called as constants in C++. Now let me quickly give you a standard definition of constant in C++. So constant is something which never changes. So for example, 10 is always going to be 10. Small a is always going to be small a. Okay. Hello there is always going to be hello there. So these values will never change. They will always remain the same. So that's why these are called as constant in C++, or I'll say in all the programming languages they are called as constants. Okay. So what is a constant? Constant is an entity which never changes. So 10, 96.5, small a, all these are constants. Now in the previous video, we have discussed about data types. We have seen that in C++ we have multiple data types. In primitive category, some data types are there in derived and some data types are there in user-defined category. Now whenever we talk about constant, each and every constant is going to have some data type. So let's start with 10. Let's understand what is data type of 10 constant. What is data type of this constant? It's very simple, right? See, this 10 is of type integer. So I can say that its data type is integer, correct? Let's understand what is data type of this constant, that is 96.5. See, this 96.5 is a fractional number. So whenever we have to deal with fractional number, we have two options. One is float and another one is double. So out of these two, out of float and double, what is going to be the exact data type of this constant, that is 96.5. So the data type of 96.5 is double. Okay, now you might be having this question in your mind, why it is double, why not float? So I'm going to come to this point shortly, but right now just understand data type of 96.5 is double, it's not float. Okay, or I'm not saying that data type of 96.5 can be either double or float. It's compulsory double, it's not going to be float. Okay, then what is data type of this small a? Over here there is one important thing. You can observe very carefully, this small a is enclosed in single quotes. So data type of this small a which is enclosed in single quote is nothing but character. Or I'll say rather, data type of all these three values is character. Always remember, whenever you have to write character constant in C++, you have to enclose it in single quote. This is very important. Character constant in C++ needs to be enclosed in single quote. Now why a character needs to be enclosed in single quote? I'll just tell you one example. Now tell me, what is data type of 8? What is its data type? Data type of 8 is going to be integer. Now what if I need to write this 8 as a character? What if I need to write this 8 as a character constant? How we can do that? So in order to do that, what you have to do is you have to just enclose this 8 in single quote. So whenever you enclose anything in single quote, it becomes a character. So what will be the data type of this thing? It's going to be character. See, there is a difference. Whenever I am writing 8 without any quotes, it's going to be integer. But whenever I am writing 8 with quote, then it's going to be character. So in order to differentiate, I'll say in order to differentiate digits with the characters, this single quote logic is added in C++, or this single quote syntax is added in C++. So with the help of single quote, you can quickly identify whether it is an integer constant or it is a character constant. And actually there are many more reasons behind having single quotes for the character, but let's not go in that discussion. Right now just remember, a character constant needs to be enclosed in single quotes. Okay. Then let's proceed ahead with the next type of constant, where we have multiple characters enclosed in double quotes. So such type of constant is called a string constant. So whenever you have multiple characters enclosed in double quotes, or I'll say whenever you have sequence of characters enclosed in double quotes, such type of constant is called as string constant in C++. Now let's come to one important discussion. What is the difference between float and double data type? This is very important question that you all might be having in your mind, right? So let's quickly understand what is the difference between float and double data type. See, float data type is less precise as compared to double data type, or I'll say double data type is 2x precise as compared to float data type. Now what do we mean by float data type is less precise by double data type, or double data type is 2x precise or more precise as compared to float data type? So for that I have one small example for you. So on my screen I have two values. The first value is 2.00012 and the second value is 1.99978. Now always remember, whenever you write any fractional value, by default it's going to be of type double. Its data type is going to be double. Whenever you write any constant, any fractional constant, its data type by default it's going to be double. It's not going to be float. Okay. Now when we say that double data type is 2x more precise as compared to float, what do we mean? See, if you observe over here, we have a value that is 2.00012. Now, if you give this value to float data type, if you give it to float, the float will not be able to understand this value completely. The float is not going to get the preciseness of this value. When you will give this value to the float, what is going to happen is the float will treat this value as 2.000. Okay, because float is less precise. So what do we mean by less precise? If you are using float, you cannot actually have many digits after the decimal. You cannot have too many digits after decimal because float is not that much precise. It cannot handle too many digits after the decimal. But double data type is more precise as compared to the float data type. That's why whenever you write this value, that is 2.00012, when you give this value to double data type, it's going to treat it as same. It's going to treat it as 2.00012. But whenever you give this value to float, it's going to treat it as 2.000. Okay. Now when I say that whenever you give this value to float or whenever you give this value to double, it's going to treat it as something. What do I exactly mean by this? So for this, just wait for few more videos. In upcoming videos, whenever we will start writing the code, at that time you will get more clear idea about all these things. Right now we're just understanding this thing from the theoretical point of view. Okay. So this is the example for telling you how float is less precise as compared to double. Let's take one more example. Whenever we have value like 1.99978, when we give this value to double, it's going to treat it as it is. It's going to treat it as 1.99978. But when we give the same value to float, what is going to happen is, as float is not that much precise, float cannot treat its value as it is. So it's going to treat this value as 2.000. So whenever you care about precision, whenever you want to store multiple digits after the decimal, at that time you should go for a double data type. And whenever you don't care about that much precision, whenever you are fine with storing single digit after the decimal or such kind of things, in that case you can go with float data type. Now let's understand how you can create a float constant. We know that how we can create a double constant. Whenever we write any fraction, it becomes a double constant. Now let's understand how we can create a float constant. So it's very easy. Let's say you want to write 96.5 and you want this to be a float constant. What you have to do is you have to write small f after this. Okay, so whenever you will write 96.5 small f, then this is going to become your float constant. So this small f in the end is actually used for telling C++ that this is not a double constant, this is a float constant. I hope this is very clear to you now. Okay, it's very simple, very straightforward. You just have to append small f at the end. Okay, and then it will become float constant. So now we have discussed about integer constant, double constant, float constant, character constant, and also string constant. Now let's also discuss about Boolean constants. So in the previous video, we have seen that for Boolean, we have two possible values, 0 and 1. Okay, so for Boolean, we can represent Boolean value by these two things, that is 0 and 1. Whereas 0 represent false value and 1 represent true value. Now how we can write Boolean constant? Is this 0 is a Boolean constant? Is this 1 is also a Boolean constant? The answer is no. Whenever you write 0 or 1, it is going to be treated as integer constant. So how to create a Boolean constant or how to define a Boolean constant? In order to define a Boolean constant, what C++ has done is C++ has provided you with two keywords. Okay, now what are the keywords? Keywords are nothing but reserved word in programming language. In the next video, I'm going to discuss more about the keywords. But right now, just remember, keywords are nothing but reserved words in programming language. Okay, so in C++, you are getting two reserved words or two keywords for dealing with Boolean values or for Boolean constants. So what are those two keywords? So in order to deal with falsy value or to represent a falsy value, you have a keyword called as false, where everything is small case. Okay, see, C++ is a case sensitive language, so writing false where everything is small case is different than writing false where everything is capital case. That's why I'm saying that C++ is a case sensitive language. So this false keyword is going to have everything in small case. Similarly, in order to represent truthy value, you have a keyword called as true. Now these two keywords are used to represent Boolean constant. So false and true are nothing but Boolean constants. So I hope this is clear to you now. So false and true are Boolean constant. 10 is an integer constant. 96.5 is a double constant. 96.5f is a floating constant. Small a, hash, comma, enclosed in single quotes are character constant. Hello there, enclosed in double quotes is string constant.